Certain patterns of behavior in early infancy can sometimes signal advanced cognitive development, not in a dramatic, but in subtle ways that reveal how a baby's brain is processing the world. Babies who show early signs of high intelligence often display distinct patterns of attention, curiosity, and problem solving long before they can speak. These signs don't guarantee a high IQ later in life, but they can reveal something fascinating, a brain that is actively trying to decode the environment faster than average. Let's start with one of the most common signs: intense and prolonged staring. One of the earliest behaviors researchers notice in highly attentive infants is how long they stare at things. Not just brief glances, we're talking about focused, almost analytical staring. A baby might lock their gaze on a face, a moving fan, a light on the wall, or even a simple toy and continue watching far longer than expected. At first, it can feel a little unusual. Parents sometimes wonder why their baby seems so intensely focused, but in many cases, that prolonged staring is actually a sign of deep information processing. Studies in developmental psychology have shown that infants who spend longer observing new objects are often processing details more actively. Instead of quickly losing interest, their brain is gathering data. What is this? How does it move? Does it make sound? Does it react when I touch it? In other words, they're studying. Babies who carefully analyze their environment tend to build stronger early cognitive pathways. Early recognition of faces. Human faces are one of the most complex visual patterns a brain can process. Even adults rely on specialized brain systems to recognize faces quickly. And babies who show early interest in faces often display advanced social intelligence development. You might notice something subtle. Your baby doesn't just look at you, they study your expressions. They focus on your eyes. They watch your mouth when you speak. They react when your expression changes. Sometimes they even appear to anticipate emotions before you say anything. That's not random. Research suggests that infants who show strong interest in faces are practicing pattern recognition and emotional decoding. Their brain is building early maps for understanding communication. This matters more than it might seem, because intelligence isn't only about logic or memory. It's also about how well someone reads people. And babies who spend extra time studying faces are training the brain systems responsible for empathy, communication, and social awareness. Strong curiosity about new objects. Highly curious babies often behave differently around new objects. Instead of ignoring something unfamiliar, they become deeply interested. You might place a new toy near them. Instead of simply grabbing it and shaking it randomly, they pause. They rotate it slowly. They inspect it from different angles. They touch different parts. This kind of exploratory play is connected to early problem-solving ability. Curiosity is one of the strongest predictors of later intellectual development because curiosity drives learning. A curious baby doesn't just interact with objects, they experiment. What happens if I drop this? What happens if I shake it? What happens if I press this part? Every action becomes a tiny experiment, and every experiment builds new neural connections. They get bored with the same thing quickly. Sometimes highly curious babies seem to lose interest in toys faster than other babies. At first, this might look like distraction, but often it's something else. Their brain has already figured it out. Once they understand how a toy works, they move on. Psychologists studying infant attention have observed that babies who process information quickly sometimes show shorter attention spans for familiar objects, not because they can't focus, but because they've already absorbed what the toy can teach them. So they start searching for something new. It's like reading a page of a book and immediately wanting the next chapter. Here's what most parents miss. One way to support this kind of curiosity is by rotating toys. Instead of offering everything at once, introduce a few items and then change them occasionally. When something new appears again, your baby's brain becomes curious all over again, and curiosity is one of the strongest engines of intelligence. Early problem-solving attempts. Highly engaged babies often try to figure things out instead of simply reacting. For example, a toy might be slightly out of reach. Instead of immediately giving up or crying, the baby might try different movements. They might stretch their arm, roll slightly toward the toy, kick their legs to shift position. These small attempts reveal something important. The baby is experimenting with cause and effect. They are testing ideas. What happens if I move this way? Can I reach it if I stretch more? This kind of early experimentation is a key building block for later logical thinking because problem solving begins with a simple realization: my actions can change the environment. Once babies understand that idea, curiosity becomes even stronger. They begin exploring not just objects, but possibilities. They experiment constantly. Watch a baby play closely and you'll notice something fascinating. Babies don't just interact with objects, they experiment. They shake things, drop them, turn them around, tap them on surfaces, and then they repeat the process again and again. For highly curious babies, this experimentation can be even more persistent. It's not random behavior, it's a tiny scientist at work. Each action helps the brain learn cause and effect. If I drop this, it falls. If I shake this, it makes noise. If I push this, it moves. Through these small experiments, babies begin building the foundations of logical thinking. Before we move on, notice something important. Your baby doesn't need complicated toys for this. Simple objects often work best. Blocks, soft balls, safe household items. What matters most isn't the object, it's the opportunity to explore what happens when they interact with it. Early communication attempts. Before babies speak, they communicate in subtle ways: eye contact, gestures, sounds. But babies who show strong cognitive engagement often attempt to communicate very frequently. They babble more, they respond to voices quickly, they imitate sounds or facial expressions. Imitation is especially important because imitation requires the brain to observe, analyze, and reproduce behavior. In other words, it requires active learning. When babies mimic sounds or expressions, they are practicing the foundation of language, and language is one of the most powerful cognitive tools humans possess. This is why early babbling, imitation, and vocal experimentation are often linked to strong language development later, and strong language skills are closely connected to many forms of intelligence. Here's something important to remember. No single behavior can predict a baby's intelligence with certainty. Human development is complex. Every baby grows at their own pace, but certain behaviors, deep curiosity, careful observation, early communication, and strong pattern recognition can reveal a brain that is eager to learn about the world, and that eagerness is one of the most powerful drivers of intelligence.